But I do think is the most important thing is really self-care, taking care of yourselves. You know, you go on the airplane, they say, you know, the whole oxygen mask thing, the metaphor, you know, really you have to help yourself before you can help anyone else. And having a kid with chronic illness is really stressful and can be very lonely. And so it's really important that you take care of yourself. That could be, you know, it's going to be different for everyone. Exercise, yoga, meditation, having someone to talk to, going to a therapist, taking a bath, whatever it is, just make sure that, you know, you all realize how important that is, because you're giving and giving and giving to your kids, and it's really important to take care of yourself. I just did a group with the siblings, and something that is really important, I think, for families, and not only families that have kids with chronic illness, is open communication. Some people do family meetings. Some people, you know, just the kids talk all the time. Some families just aren't as much talkers about emotions. But it is really important for the kids to know that they can talk to their parents. So open communication, if you start with your child being open about, at age appropriately about their illness, then that's going to be really helpful for them being able to cope. And another thing is encouraging kids to own their own illness, to really know their story. Kids that do the best are kids that can really talk about what's going on with them, because they can explain it to other people. So I really, you know, I know some of the people in here have really worked with their kids in that way, and it's been helpful. So I encourage that. And also, because these kids spend a lot of time at school, school issues, getting involved at your kid's school, educating the teacher, educating the kids, so that when your kid comes into a classroom, even I think that Joy, you guys did this, right, with your daughter. I think you brought that up last year, and that's why I'm bringing it up. That, you know, educate everyone at the school if possible, so that these kids feel like they have a support system. Hi, come on in. I mentioned siblings because siblings are, if your kid does have a sibling, they're a huge part of your kid's ability to cope. Siblings often really feel like they have to take care of their sib that has the illness, or they feel maybe left out sometimes. There is going to be a talk at 5 o'clock, a panel of siblings that are going to talk about, parents can ask them any issues, any questions, and they're going to talk about their experiences. So I think it's really important if your child has a sibling to try and go to that session. Build your kid's self-concept. It's like build on pride. That's sort of like the owning your own story, your own illness story. Really, it's a good idea for these kids to realize all the positive things that they have going on, not just like, oh, I have an illness, but what are the things that you feel good about yourself? A lot of these kids, they feel totally out of control because they don't have control over their bodies, right? Their bodies are doing things that they can't control. So helping your kids in any way to give them whatever control they can, whether it's making small decisions, when you're going to take your medication, you know, within reason, you know, what you're going to do, give them options for choices. I think that can be really helpful for building a kid's self-esteem around that. And I really believe that empathy is a huge, important skill or coping mechanism for everyone. So having empathy and self-compassion for yourself, but actually being empathic with your kids, so that when they say, "Oh, I'm in pain," even if you've heard it over and over again, to acknowledge that, or if they're having a hard day, it must be hard. It sounds like you're having a hard time, right? It's very important for kids to feel heard, and even if they are saying, "I'm in so much pain," it can become exhausting sometimes because you just don't want to hear them saying that. But to really be empathic. So that's sort of all I have written down. There's a million coping mechanisms. I'm sure you all have ideas. Does anyone have a question or something that they want to start with?
From the beginning, we were very open on the condition at school, with friends, and it was very helpful to communicate with everybody so they understand what she's going through. But this year, she moved to first grade, and she changed a little bit, and she wanted more privacy, and she didn't want to share that. And she started to think that she was not invited to play dates or birthday because of it. So for me, it was a little bit hard to maneuver the situation because it got me for surprise. But what would you recommend on a situation like that? When I prefer to be open so people understand, but I need to respect her wish and just keep it quiet or
I think
private.
that's a really good point. You have to start where your child is. So if your child's really young and they're just going into a program, a school, I think it's great to be open. But the minute they say they don't want everyone knowing or talking about something, I think you really do have to respect that.
I think my daughter gets a little tired of explaining it. Sometimes. I know that when she was on steroids and first had the physical look, and now she's off steroids but is on a plethora of other things, it's hard for her. People automatically, I think, assume that, she's fine now. Everything's great. And so that's been tricky for her to explain to them. They don't understand now. Oh, she's still tired, but you look normal as, they think. So that's been a tricky thing for her to explain to them. Well, I'm still, I always have this, but I'm just not on steroids anymore. And so she's at that point of having to explain how people, I think, automatically assume you look fine now, so you're fine now.
Yeah, my daughter did take steroids, but she never really got the side effect of having the very big cheeks. And she couldn't walk up steps. And no one understood. She looked exactly the way she always had looked. So people thought she was faking it, wanting to get the elevator at school, which barely anyone gets to use. And it was difficult for her. And even though she was older, she was 15 when this happened, it still was really challenging.
I was going to just say to what you were saying, this was in our discussion this morning, and I thought it was brilliant. And it's a great analogy, is JM is like diabetes, right? Our kids look, once they get past the steroids, they look normal. But so do kids with, who give themselves insulin shots 3 times a day. So it's a great analogy. I was just wanting to
Absolutely.
Kelly and I put together a PowerPoint presentation ourselves, and so we spoke to the teacher. We actually spoke to the collection of first grade teachers. There's 4 of them at our school. And what we did is we put this presentation together, and we went into all 4 classes on the second day of school. And so basically, as kindergartners, Livy was not able to go finish kindergarten because she got sick. And so the kids are broken up. There's 20 kids, so 5 go into each class. So 5 kids knew her from the previous year, and then there are a collection of new students. So we went in with the presentation. We presented it with pictures of them from her previous year with them, like activities that were happening in school, so they all knew who she was and could associate with the video because they were in it. And then we showed what took place, what happened to her, what she looks like now, what she can and can't do, that it's not contagious, and we went through this whole thing, and she did not experience one problem this year. And so her kindergarten teacher presented it to the kindergarten teachers, their group, and her second grade was her homeschool teacher. they presented, and those are all the kids that are on the playground with her. So that whole collection of people knew what was going on because she looked extremely different. I was telling the story earlier. A young boy who was known her since she was 2 years old, when we went into his class to present, she was standing right next to me, and he said, "Libby's mom, where's Libby?" And it took me a minute. It completely took me by surprise, and I a little bit lost it at that point. But I realized that he, knowing her for all these years, did not even realize that that's who it was, you know. And so it really gave these kids knowledge and understanding, and everybody was very supportive of her. And, you know, her teacher as well. When one IVIG, we FaceTimed the class, and she put the phone here, and she read to the class, and every now she would show the picture to Livy and show it to the class. And, I mean, they were really great. Amazing.
Amazing. You know, when kids are taking steroids, their personalities can really change. And if a small child's, you know, physical appearance looks different, they might just not feel like they fit into their own bodies. So I think really listening to your kid if they want to be alone, you know, trying to figure out what's going on. Obviously, you don't want them to just isolate. But it sounds like with your child, it worked for her to be alone for a little bit of time, and then she feels maybe more comfortable. So maybe that's a way of her feeling more control. Like that's the only thing she has control over is whether she's alone or with other people.
Trying to set up play dates with our friends or her children friends became really difficult with our work schedules, and everybody has a very busy life. And it'd be nice if we could make a routine, but we couldn't. So finding a social skills play group really helped that. And now my son is actually younger, and he is having a few issues with anxiety and some social skill issues. And it has nothing to do with JDM other than he is a little bit probably traumatized by this whole experience too. And maybe anything we can do to help. So I would say if there's a way you can find some support mechanism in your community that was a useful tool for us.
That's fantastic. Social skills groups can be great. I mean, a lot of places, I mean, it's not that easy to find them. Depends on where you live. But some kids also do well to meet with an art therapist a few times or a play therapist. But I do think that it's very challenging for anyone to take a medicine that they need to take and then feel like it's changing you, not only externally, but emotionally. And maybe, some of these kids feel out of control when they're on their prednisone. And, I think it's really important to, be aware of it, but then to try all these various things, give them some space, but encourage them. And whether it's setting up play dates or a group or a therapist, they will get through it. But it's hard as a parent to watch, too. In terms of, we talked about this last year, I remember, setting limits with kids, especially when they are having a lot of issues around acting out and they're taking a lot of prednisone and stuff. I mean, I think the most important thing is to be really empathic initially. So you could say, it seems like you're having a hard time right now. You are taking a lot of medicine right now that can affect your outbursts or your moods, and then set the limit, whatever it is. But, or talk to them about other ways that they maybe can try to control themselves. I mean, it's really hard with little kids when they feel out of control with the rage of the steroids can cause.
Being on steroids, she was on pulse steroids for like 4 or 5 months, so there was a lot of roid rage, and then she was weaned, and she's off steroids now, but she's only been off for a few weeks. But there were behavior patterns that we kind of let go, and now she's so smart. She's 5, and she is like 3 steps ahead of me most of the time. But like, she knows, so she'll come back down. She'll wake up in the middle of the night a lot, or come back down for things, and so something hurts, and so I have to get up, or different things. And it's always that constant, how do you set that limit when you think she's being manipulative, but you don't know because she's 5, so we're just trying to listen to her body and listen to her. But at the same time, she takes advantage of that and can, I don't know, go the extra mile. And one thing we struggle with shots right now, and she just hates getting her methotrexate shot. And so my husband holds her and I give it. And so every time he asks for a hug, she's like, am I getting a shot? Like, he can't even give her a hug without that. And so it's like, I don't know. It's just hard, and I don't have the answers, but it seems ongoing.
Can she take oral?
She's had the shot because just because she's so little, and they said they can just control the amount better and how much she's actually getting, and she's responded well to it, and so they don't want to. She's been on she was actually on methotrexate for a year for eczema. Whatever. So eczema, JDM, I don't know. So when she came off of it, she had more of the muscle involvement, and then so she's been on it again now since since May of last year, so almost 13 months. And again, it's always been oral, and so she's doing pretty well on it, so they don't want to change it.
It is really hard. I mean, kids are really smart and adaptive, and they get manipulative because it works. There's a reason. They learn what works, how they could get themselves out of pain or out of situations, and it is really confusing, and you don't want to set up patterns, but you do have to make sure that it's not a real health issue or they're not in pain. So it's challenging.